Welcome everyone to day 4 of Perimenopause Unpacked, where today we are going to dive into stress and sleep. My name is Kelly Vita, and I own Empower Her Fitness in Batavia. All of our classes and workshops are run out of Zen Life Collective, right across from the Boardwalk Shops in downtown Batavia. And really, the way in which I try to approach health, wellness, fitness, etc., is all through the lens of women's wellness and empowerment, making sure that you have a good understanding of what's happening in your body and why. And in that way, finding ways that make you feel better, not just necessarily because someone else is doing it, because it really is something that speaks to your specific needs, especially as we go through perimenopause. So as I mentioned, today we are going to talk about sleep and stress, and then we will kind of begin and end the same way that we've done the last 3 days, starting with ground rules. Again, just a reminder to try one new thing. Hopefully you are learning new things that you've never heard before, or maybe you have heard, but you're looking to maybe take this week to actually employ it for yourself. And then as we think about just giving ourselves grace and being compassionate with ourselves, especially during this time of our life where there's a lot going on and there's a lot of stressors in our lives. And the last thing that we need to do is be hard on ourselves when everything else feels like it's hard on us already. Prioritize sleep and rest. We'll talk a lot about sleep today, but that rest part is also just, allowing yourself to decompress from some of the stressors of life or just everything that you have going on, rather than rushing through your day. Find little pockets that you can take for yourself, for self-care, or just to kind of rest and recover. Move daily, whether that is a walk outside, a more structured class, or just something around the house. Remember, we talked about that NEPA, finding those ways in which you can get movement in, potentially going to the store rather than having your groceries delivered, etc. Those are just small ways to incorporate more movement during your day. Then lean into your community, whether it's here or those around you where you live or in your family. Understanding, of course, that not everyone is going through the same thing that we are, or maybe it's happening a little bit differently to them. So finding those individuals who just kind of get you and that you can plug into, and just have those sessions where you vent or, open up to get that off of your chest. And then remember your why. So again, understanding what is important to you, especially as we go through this perimenopause transition, and understanding what is most important to you, going back to that every time things feel hard or you just don't want to eat well or move your body, remembering, why you're doing it in the first place. So let's talk about stress. I know that we all have it, and probably we all have it more than we ever have, especially in this time of life where, again, we're that sandwich generation, potentially handling or managing our aging parents, as well as trying to build and develop the relationships with our growing children, maybe their adolescents or, starting to go off to college. All of this weighs on us in ways that kind of compounds any financial or work or, you name it, other type of stress that we might be under. So if we think about stress for just a minute, there are 2 different types. There's acute and there's chronic. So acute is really where you are just like going through a burst. You just really need to work at a high stress level for a short amount of time, and then ultimately it will be over. A great example is a project due at work, or leading up to an event that you're planning. There's a lot of stress on you, yes, but you know that ultimately there's an end in sight, and after that things will kind of resume back to normal. There's chronic, though, that keeps us just at a stressed level all the time. And so sometimes we look at work or projects that we're working on as acute, like, okay, if I can just make it till Saturday, like that's when I can decompress. But oftentimes there's just another project and another project. And so we don't have those highs and lows or, those peaks and recoveries. We just have a high that continues on and on. So we want to make sure that we are doing things that combat the chronic type of stress, and then understand really how that stress plays into a hormonal imbalance, how stress can worsen sleep problems, and then how cortisol, which is released when we're stressed out, has a role in the dysregulation that we feel, maybe even amplifying it during this time of our lives. So, with that being said, stress, again, is the body's response just to a perceived threat or challenge. It's going to trigger the fight or flight inside of you, and that is going to be done through the sympathetic nervous system and releasing hormones such as cortisol, adrenaline. We feel that rush, and hopefully we can ultimately decompress or detox after. But like I said, we are currently living at a chronic stress level where we just have ongoing stress over weeks, over months. And this is the most damaging type to our health, especially as we're going through hormonal transitions like perimenopause. So with that being said, let's get into just a few more things. Sorry, I thought I added another slide, but it looks like I didn't. So with the understanding of what types of stress there is, let's talk about how it can affect our hormones. So chronic stress is going to lead to just a persistent elevation of cortisol, which we already talked about. We don't have that kind of decompression or detox after. That actually disrupts the balance of estrogen, of progesterone, of the other key hormones that either we've talked about at the beginning of the week or maybe we haven't talked about, but all play a role in our well-being, especially in this stage. It's going to suppress that progesterone, which is that calming hormone. It helps to promote sleep. And ultimately, we're already kind of decreasing in the progesterone, especially as we stop ovulating. So now we're kind of suppressing it further. And so that's why stress might just feel all that much more worse. And then increase insulin resistance. So with regards to our blood sugar, we talked about, especially in the nutrition aspect, that we want to keep our blood sugar as balanced as we can, kind of eliminating the swings, the highs, the lows. We feel it, especially after we eat certain foods. We have that energy, but we have the crash later. Well, all of that kind of compounds into issues when we have this chronic stress and elevated cortisol level. Which can affect just our day-to-day well-being, but also our sleep. So stress and sleep have a really good hand in hand. With regards to stress and estrogen, stress is going to worsen estrogen fluctuations. So if you feel like you have really intense hot flashes or mood swings, it could be that combination of stress and estrogen. And then, as we talked about with the progesterone, more anxiety, poor sleep quality. When you wake up at night, your thoughts are racing, potentially keeping you up for much longer than you should be to just go to the bathroom or something of the sorts. We'll also talk about cortisol's role with regards to melatonin. And so those are both natural hormones in your body that are in balance at any given time. So as cortisol is high, melatonin is low, and then hopefully at the end of the day, cortisol is coming down as melatonin is going up. But if cortisol is staying high, melatonin is going to stay low. And so that again is going to affect your sleep. Okay, so now we can get into a little bit more around the specifics of cortisol. So cortisol, as you probably already know, is called the stress hormone, and it's great and helpful in short bursts to get through that project, to get through that event. But with it being elevated, especially, kind of all the stressors that are in our lives these days, it's wreaking havoc on our bodies. And during perimenopause, I mentioned hormone fluctuations. This also makes our body more sensitive to cortisol. And so it's just, not only is it affecting our sleep and our mood and all of that, but it's making it harder. The hormonal shifts are making it harder to regulate the stress response. So that's what I said, I think in like day one, where sometimes we just don't care anymore. Like, our desire to please everyone has just gone down, and it all kind of bundles up together to ultimately get us to the point where we're just stressed out all the time and everything sets us off and makes us irritable. Now, kind of going along with that, estrogen is a buffer to cortisol. And so that's why the two are kind of in play. When one goes down, the other one kind of goes unmatched. And so we want to make sure that we are doing what we can to mitigate stress, because it's probably feeling more intense. It's exacerbating your other perimenopausal symptoms. And it's just this vicious cycle that we need to get out of. So if we think about cortisol, again, it's going to affect our sleep. And that's because it should be high in the morning, around 7 or 8 to wake you up, and then gradually decline throughout the day, reaching its lowest point at night so that your melatonin can rise. It's going to impact your your blood sugar, your emotional stress, your chronic overload. And so we kind of already talked about these. I'm kind of off on my slides here, but that's all to say that cortisol is not just something where you like feel it in your gut and you feel it in your throat and maybe like your shoulders are up towards your ears and you just always feel stressed. Besides like these very obvious physical aspects, it's playing into those sleep disruptions, blood sugar imbalances, emotional stress, chronic overload. And what I wanted to talk about was high intensity exercise, because we talked about movement yesterday, and movement is great for exercise, but too much intense cardio, like long distance running, or like boot camp type things, those are actually going to raise our cortisol. I mentioned it earlier in the week. Our body doesn't know if we're running from a tiger or if we're running on a treadmill. And so we're giving you those short bursts, that acute, release of stress so that you can get through the situation. But we are doing it to maybe lose weight or, have some sort of body composition or just to feel better. But especially in this time of our lives, it's just raising our cortisol, and chances are you have either plateaued or you're gaining weight. And so that's, why the conversation around movement yesterday was all about just finding movement that you enjoy and can do consistently, and that doesn't raise that stress response in your body. All right. And then caffeine and alcohol is going to ultimately come into play with regards to cortisol. This is why during the conversation around nutrition, I said, please don't have caffeine or like coffee as the only thing for breakfast, or if it is for breakfast, eat it with a high protein meal so that you are not just increasing and spiking your cortisol in the morning. And then alcohol can disrupt sleep and liver function. And so that is, going to indirectly raise your stress hormones. And as we'll see when it comes to sleep, it can disrupt our sleep right around 3 a.m. Poor gut health is ultimately going to come into play. So we talked about the gut microbiome and how that ultimately plays its role in terms of how we feel or that systemic inflammation. And so if we have poor gut microbiome, either from age, diet, or stress, that is going to play a role in raising our cortisol. And then the gut is considered our second brain. And so that's why we have so much emphasis on the importance of having a strong, healthy gut microbiome. And that gut brain axis, like the communication between the two that also plays a key role in regulating your cortisol. So that's why we want both to be strong and both to be healthy so that it's sending the right signals and it's receiving them appropriately so that they are providing cortisol when you need it and trying to regulate it when you don't. And then it's important to understand the negative thought patterns that we feel, maybe, not specific to perimenopause, but maybe, part of being a woman or just kind of where you are in your life or your environment. And so as we think about like all the pressure that we put on ourselves, that increased emotional sensitivity or anxiety can just feel so much more amplified during perimenopause to the point where it's like catastrophic thinking. So thinking the worst at all times. And I know I catch myself doing this all the time. And I have to like walk myself back because it's like, in what like situation or like why do I have these thoughts? So I work with a lot of women who like just always feel like they are on the brink of losing their job. And so like my first question is, why do you think that? Like what stress or, what indications in your day-to-day activities would give you that thought? And as we kind of break it down, it's like, well, I'm doing really good. I'm having, really great feedback, but I just know I could give more. And it's like, well, if everyone thinks you're doing a great job, then I would go with that and not let yourself talk you, the opposite way to the point where you now have this catastrophic thinking that keeps you up at night and just perpetuates your stress response during the day because it doesn't seem like that truly is the reality. So the good news is that there are quite a few ways in which we can break the cycle. We've already talked about quite a few of them this week, but managing stress during perimenopause, it's not just self-care, unfortunately. It would be nice if we could just like go get a massage and be completely relaxed and, kind of start back at zero with our stress levels. Rather, we need to think about how can we create a sustainable routine. We talked a lot about like sustainability and consistency with regards to movement, but how can we do something similar that supports our changing biology, especially associated with the stress response. So practicing mindfulness or meditation, that's great for calming the nervous system. I forget what it's called, but there's like certain tapping exercises or there's Reiki. There's like the meditation that you can do that's guided on like a Calm app. There's a lot of different ways that we can start to kind of stimulate our EFT. Yes, thank you. That we can stimulate our vagus nervous system, our parasympathetic nervous system, our vagus nerve, our parasympathetic nervous system, and ultimately kind of help to calm the nervous system. We can incorporate gentle exercises and movement, like we talked about yesterday, walking being one of the most amazing that we could do. We could turn to something like a yoga class where we have mindful movement, some of those poses, being very specific to either calming exercises or just opening and kind of freeing your mind from negative thoughts. I know we were kind of talking before we started here, but walking out in nature is so beneficial. Just the smell, the sun, so many different aspects of being out in nature and like nature bathing is beneficial to your overall nervous system. So get out and walk as much as you can, other than staying in and maybe just walking on a treadmill. Prioritize sleep, and we'll talk a lot about sleep in just a few minutes, especially as it relates to like a whole routine around sleep. So I've had women in these various workshops. They're like, I bought myself some really nice, comfortable pajamas, and I just know like as soon as I put those on, I can kind of decompress and I can start to get ready for sleep. I also work with a lot of new moms, and it's funny the ways in which the two kind of closely translate. It's like, what do we think about for a baby? Well, establish a routine, turn the lights down low, remove any anything that would increase their energy, quiet music, talk quietly, read a book. It's like, okay, so if we're doing this for a baby, like, why are we not doing this for ourselves? It obviously helps to regulate sleep for someone who doesn't understand sleep. So now let's kind of bring back um, all of those guidelines as we age and, find that sleep kind of eludes us. And then stabilize blood sugar with balanced nutrition, as we talked about on the second day. And then build a support network seeking professional help when you feel like you need it. So if, again, you have those like really destructive thoughts that are just amplified and, are persistent, I would recommend that you start to think about maybe tuning into like a life coach, therapist, something of the sorts. There's also some supplementation. And of course, with any supplementation, I would make sure that you're talking to your healthcare professional. But St. John's wort is known for its mood lifting effects. It's great for helping to alleviate depression and anxiety, especially during perimenopause. And then CBD, I know there's some like specific thoughts around use of CBD. I think that if you find a reputable resource, one that's supported by the U.S. Hemp Authority, that is your best bet. But again, talk to your doctor, find a reputable resource, and talk about what that means for you. CBD, if you don't know, is a non-psychoactive compound that's found in hemp, and it interacts with your body's endocannabinoid system, which helps to regulate your mood, reduce anxiety, calm the mind, the body, and ultimately promote emotional balance. One of the women that I work very closely with owns a shop, Urban Apothecary, here in downtown Batavia. And she is just a great resource, has a lot of different certifications around this area. So if you ever want to talk to a reputable resource, I would point you to Urban Apothecary and Cheryl Cryer in Batavia. And then if we think about how all of this relates to sleep, we need to dig into what we can do to improve our sleep so that we mitigate like that vicious cycle that is high level of stress, low level of sleep, high, high, low, high, low, high, low, and it all just compounds. It's kind of like you're in the undertow and it's hard to get out of. So the first thing is probably just finding a way to sleep enough, and some of the stressors may just kind of relieve themselves. So with sleep, I know sometimes it is like, oh, just go to bed earlier. Like, oh, like we didn't think about that. So it's so much more than just like going to bed at 9 p.m. because chances are we won't fall asleep for a couple hours, or we'll have really great restful sleep until about that 3 a.m. mark. And then we're just up. So what do we do about all of that? So in terms of just challenges related to our sleep, we might have insomnia, night sweats where you just feel like drenched when you wake up. Some women that I've worked with, they have like cooling sheets and they absolutely love them because there's only so much nakedness that you can get to until like ultimately it would just be a matter of taking off your skin. You may have difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or those early morning wakings like I talked about. So let's talk about the 3 a.m. wake up because maybe like show of hands or just like throw in the chat. Has that ever happened to you? And like I'm calling out 3 a.m. specifically because if you ever look at your clock, I am almost like willing to put down money that it is right around that 3 a.m. mark. Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, awesome. I mean, it's not awesome, Michelle, that you're waking up at 3 a.m., but we'll talk about why that is and what we can do about it. So with regards to those early morning wakings, it's hormonal fluctuations. Your estrogen is dropping during the night, and that's disrupting your serotonin and your melatonin production. And so these are basically the hormones that are keeping you asleep. So we need estrogen to stay high if we can, but chances are during this time of our life, that's not going to happen. Progesterone also declining, just reducing its natural sedative and calming effect. So as these two hormones kind of drop, some women will look to that hormone replacement therapy that we talked about on the first day to ultimately keep them higher, helping them kind of mitigate these hormonal fluctuations that are happening during the night. Now, as we also talked about, estrogen and progesterone, they play a role with cortisol production. So cortisol, that stress hormone, it may rise too early. It should rise around 7 to 8 a.m. to help you kind of wake up naturally. But it may just be increasing in an unnatural form or fashion, which is ultimately causing you to wake up and disrupt your circadian rhythm. And so the circadian rhythm, maybe at like the most basic form, is if you think about the sun. So it comes up in the morning and goes down at night. And so our energy levels should mirror that. They rise during the day, kind of level out in the middle of the day, and then slowly go down so that we can slowly go back to sleep. But cortisol is just kind of taking us for this wild ride, and our circadian rhythm's like, I don't know, it's probably, like 7 a.m. at 7 p.m. And so that's, why we're not falling asleep. So either these cortisol spikes are jolting you awake or just making it hard for you to fall asleep or fall back asleep. Those night sweats or hot flashes, they're just sudden heat surges, which can wake you up and just make you feel uncomfortable. Again, there's only so much clothing that you can strip off. So maybe something like those cooling sheets. But we also want to think about like when are our night sweats or hot flashes the worst? Maybe what have we eaten the day before? Or like what maybe was part of our daily routine the day before, and is that playing into our hot flashes? One thing about hot flashes, and I'd love for you to kind of see if this is true in your own life, but our internal temperature is, our internal temperature regulator is kind of just off at this time of our lives. And so when you eat something, it's rising our temperature. So ultimately, like we can digest that food. That's normal, that's natural. But because we don't have that regulator, or it's not as strong as it used to be, like our temperature will go way up until it can find like that ground to come back to. That ultimately is like where we need to be for digesting food. So that's why I'm saying like understand what you eat or how much you eat, things like this, that can all play into how intense all of your symptoms are. But I've seen it like a little bit more exacerbated by within hot flashes. And then blood sugar dips. So overnight, you're going to have a drop in glucose levels, and this can signal to the body that it needs to release adrenaline and cortisol, something to like wake you up or to rescue your energy. And again, hopefully you're seeing like all of these things come into play. And when your blood sugar dips and your estrogen's going down, your cortisol's spiking, it's no wonder why we have all of these sleep disturbances. Now, your blood sugar can kind of find these dips if you ate a sugary meal or drink alcohol before bed. I will also say that some women who fast at a certain time, and this is why I'm not like a huge fan of intermittent fasting, just like without any sort of guidelines or best practices. But if you are not eating within a certain amount of your bedtime and you're waking up at 3 a.m., we may need to add like a nighttime snack before you go to bed so that your blood sugar stays balanced rather than finding this dip. So anyways, that all goes back to like, not everything is a hard and fast rule. It needs to be bio-individual. That's why when I see things on the internet or like on Facebook pages where it's like intermittent fasting, that's what you got to do. I'm like, that's not the best blanket for everyone. May have worked for you, and that is amazing, but not everyone is the same. And then, of course, that stress that we just talked about can lead to anxiety and overthinking, which ultimately sometimes will keep us from going to bed. Or when we wake up, that's all that we think about. And ultimately, we'll just stay up for the rest of the night and day because we have this internal chatter that's just amplified, especially as we're in like a quiet, dark environment. It's like our mind is just racing, and it's all we can think about. So, what the heck can we do about it? Well, oh, sorry. Before we get to that, let's talk about blue light because this has another huge effect on your sleep. And it wasn't necessarily called out specifically on the last slide, but it is very important. Over the last few days, I've been wearing my blue light blocker glasses, and I just bought them on Amazon for like $10. But I wear these because blue light is that light that is like a natural part of the sun's light waves. It's part of the visible light spectrum that we can see. But besides just coming from the sun, it is coming from all of these unnatural sources. So digital screens, LED and fluorescent lighting, just a mixture of our phones, our tablets, always looking at that not only is causing like eye strain, but also affecting our circadian rhythm, going back to that. So blue light actually suppresses melatonin, and that's the hormone that we need to signal to our body that it's time to sleep. I have had people take like as many milligrams of melatonin as they can at night, and it has done nothing for them. And that it could be just because of all of the other aspects that are either like mitigating the melatonin that they've taken or suppressing it. And so that's why we want to think about how we can get rid of all those other factors so that our naturally occurring hormones and those that we're supplementing with can all do the job that they're meant to do. Exposure, especially in the evening. So I know that I'm very guilty of this. I like to watch I like to watch TV in bed at night, and I also scroll my phone. But exposure, especially in the evening, can delay sleep onset, reduce REM sleep, and shorten just our overall sleep duration. So it may make it feel like you're just always drowsy and tired, but you can't fall asleep. That may be another thing that you have a lot too. We talked about blue light affecting the natural circadian rhythm, and ultimately that is what's regulating our sleep-wake cycles, our body temperature, our hormone release. And so daytime blue light exposure, especially in the morning, is going to support healthy circadian rhythm. And we'll talk about this in just a minute for your kind of daytime routine. You want to get that direct sunlight like early in the morning so that your body wakes up and kind of cues the like natural body clock. But then as we start to think about later in the evening, like we'll want our blue blocker glasses on or not look at screens because it's then going to be very disruptive to the natural rhythm and confuse the brain into thinking that it's still daytime. And then with regards to what we can do about it. So we can either utilize blue light filters after sunset. And so that is, kind of going back to the glasses or even on our devices. So one thing that you've been staring at on this screen has been a screenshot of an iPhone's settings. And so under display and brightness, there is actually a night shift that you can toggle on, and that is going to make your screen go into more of like a reddish tone. Try it out. If it's not turned on, I would turn it on, and that kind of minimizes the blue light through a filter that's already built in on your phone. So I don't know about Androids, but that's what it is for iPhones. Wear the blue light blocking glasses, limit your screen time, and then get natural light early and often. So again, without glasses on, without even contacts, and they say, look directly at the sun, but like go out in the sunlight and just kind of absorb that in your eyes so your circadian rhythm starts its natural, its natural clock. Okay, sorry, I'm not sure what's going on. Okay, so now as we think about what we can do about it, here are some thoughts. There are immediate tools. So what do you do when you wake up at 3 a.m. or can't fall asleep? And then what do you do kind of over the longer term so that you can ultimately get back to more restful sleep long term? So immediate tools that you can do in the moment is when you wake up, don't look at your phone, don't look at the clock. This is going to increase your alertness. Just potentially work on breath work or potentially get out of bed and read under a dim light. So if you feel like, man, it's been like hours and I'm not falling back asleep, I would actually get out of bed if you're not back asleep within 20 minutes. Obviously, like we're not looking at the clock, but if you do peak and it's been well past 20 minutes since you woke up, that's kind of the point of getting out of bed and going and finding a book to read or something that's not stimulating and not looking at your phone. With regards to preventative strategies, we're trying to balance our blood sugar before bed. So I'll provide you with some potential snacks that you can eat that will help to ultimately balance your blood sugar rather than, something sugary or alcoholic, which can spike it. Kind of avoiding those where you can. You might want to talk to your doctor or a professional about hormone replacement therapy or other non-hormonal options like herbal support or like I have supplementations on the next screen just to see if you can support balance in a way where we can't naturally do it without the help of herbs or therapy. Create a wind down routine. So this is kind of going back to my analogy to the newborns, right? We think about a bath, a bottle, bed, maybe reading a story, and we try to do that consistently because that cues to our little one's brain that it is now time for bed. It is no different as we now, push ourselves forward 40 some years that we should have that same wind down routine. The first being to go screen free 60 minutes before bed, and then bringing in some other calming rituals. Maybe having a bath or stretching, journaling, writing down everything that's on your mind. So it's now like on pen and paper. So you don't have to worry about it when you wake up or, it doesn't prevent you from going to sleep. You can put on those nice pajamas. Like I said, one of my students does, maybe like splurge a little bit on something that's really maybe cooling and comfortable. And then keep your bedroom cool and dark. So your bedroom should be between about like 65 and 70, maybe 72 degrees when you sleep. And that's because our body's natural temperature goes down right before we go to sleep. So we need to kind of keep that temperature down for our bodies, but also like cue to our bodies to lower the temperature so that we're kind of stimulating that sleep response naturally. Then have a consistent bed and wake time so that your body again knows like, oh, it's 9:30, within the next 30 minutes, I'll be going to bed. And then even potentially naturally without an alarm clock, waking up at the same time, you'll find like that consistency to bed to awake just kind of happens. Maybe make yourself a chamomile or caffeine-free green tea. Those have compounds that signal to the brain that it's time to sleep. It also can replace like your before bed glass of wine or potentially something a little bit more stimulating or that has sugar in it that affects our blood sugar. I talked about when you wake up, try to get that morning light exposure, 15 to 30 minutes of sunlight, like 30 or so minutes of waking so that you can reset your circadian rhythm. One of the things that we like to say is a good night's sleep starts in the morning. So keep that in mind as you start thinking about your sleep patterns for the next, for this week and on to the future. And then there are certain supplements that you may want to consider. I'll just say it again. Supplementation, not always great to just go out and buy whatever like I tell you or you read on the internet. Some things can interact with other medications that you're on, or some things could be bad for you in high dosages. So always consult with your healthcare provider before just like jumping on a supplement. So melatonin we talked about. Ultimately, we should have that being naturally produced, but maybe because of the cortisol or other hormones or like suppressants that are happening, we could just have low melatonin. It helps you to kind of reset a sleep-wake cycle. It helps with that early morning waking. And it helps when like your sleep timing is disrupted in perimenopause. Magnesium, we talked about the power of magnesium, either taken internally or through an Epsom salt bath or being sprayed on your feet. Glycinate, you'll notice that it comes in like a couple of different forms. Glycinate and citrate are kind of the two. Glycinate is more so for like the calming benefits, calming the nervous system and relaxing the muscles. And it also helps to kind of reduce that stress that we may feel just built up and support mood and sleep. Glycine, Glycine, as you see here, is going to help promote a deeper sleep because it helps to reduce your core body temperature. So remember, our body kind of naturally reduces the temperature before we go to bed. And so this kind of just adds to it by helping to reduce the core body temperature. And then it can help to counteract sleep disruptions, especially as we think about those hot flashes or night sweats that we might get. L-theanine, this is great for helping to reduce anxiety and racing thoughts before bed. It helps with that stress-related sleep disruption. It's calming without sedation. And it may combine well with melatonin or magnesium, but I would, talk to your healthcare professional, kind of what the right supplement cocktail, for lack of a better word, may be. Valerian root, this helps with insomnia or if you have trouble falling asleep. So think about potentially where you're at with your sleep cycle and if that trouble falling asleep is it. You may want to bring in valerian root. It can cause grogginess or interact with other medications, so it's not necessarily best for everyone. Ashwagandha we had already talked about as it relates to nutrition and being an adaptogen. It also helps with stress and your cortisol regulation. You may need to check if it impacts any thyroid medication that you take. So do keep that in mind. And then adaptogens. Cheryl Cryer, again, my friend from Urban Apothecary, she said adaptogens are great for you to be on like at 3 months, for 3 months at a time, and then give yourself some time between starting it again, ashwagandha being that. So if you have been on it for a while now, it may be a great time to stop ashwagandha and then pick it up in a couple months' time, and you may have better reactions to its effectiveness. And then just kind of quickly, GABA, black cohosh, all of this to help calm the brain, reduce hot flashes, night sweats. And then some of these, as I mentioned, might be nice in combination, like melatonin, magnesium, glycine, kind of interacting or impacting the various symptoms that you may feel that are waking you up. With the supplements beyond just talking to your health provider, you may want to start with a low dose rather than just what the bottle says and slowly work your way up to the daily recommended values, just monitoring how you're feeling and reacting. If something is making you groggy the next day, probably something that you just don't want to continue. So that's why I would start slow, monitor how you feel, and then work your way up. Also consider what kind of vitamins you are getting or where your sources are. The FDA does not regulate vitamins, so even though it says something on the outside doesn't mean it's the same thing on the inside. So find a reputable a vitamin company that has quality products. So let's talk about nighttime snacking because I definitely have like a little sweet tooth before bed. But instead of maybe having something high in sugar, I'll turn to something like tart cherry juice, bananas, We'll kind of just go down quickly. Greek yogurt or cottage cheese, it's high in protein, especially casein, and that can help with your muscle repair overnight, but it's also going to slow down your digestion and help you stabilize blood sugar. Tart cherries or tart cherry juice is actually a natural source of melatonin and antioxidants. So they're going to help reduce inflammation, help support sleep quality. Nut butter, or even just like the plain nuts, like almonds are really great. These are healthy fats. They're adding a little bit of protein. They're going to help slow any carbohydrate absorption and reduce overnight blood sugar dips. And then bananas have potassium and magnesium. These are relaxing your muscles. It has natural sugar that's paired with fiber, so it also gives you stabilized energy. You can pair like a banana with a whole grain piece of bread, if you're looking for kind of a combo between any one of these. And then a small portion of oats may be great. They're low glycemic, and so they're not going to spike your blood sugar. So they also have been known to help tryptophan, which helps you fall asleep or feel sleepy, cross the blood-brain barrier and helps with melatonin production. If you want to throw a few walnuts or flax seeds in for some of that healthy fat, like we talked about the other day, that's just an added bonus. One other thing that you may want to consider is honey. So honey in moderation and preferably local is a great way for you to potentially stabilize your blood sugar overnight. A small amount is all you need, just like about a teaspoon, and that may help to provide glucose to fuel your brain. It may prevent cortisol from spiking from a blood sugar crash in the middle of the night. And then it helps your liver store glycogen, supporting a more stable sleep. So rather than maybe just having like a teaspoon right off the spoon, you may want to pair it with a protein or a fat so you further slow absorption. An example would be putting a little teaspoon in the yogurt that you're already eating, or add it to a piece of toast with nut butter and like honey on top. Or of course, add it to tea for a little bit of sweetness. All right. So the last thing that I want to kind of call out as like one of those combo snacks before bed is not necessarily something that you eat, but something that you drink. It was like a viral TikTok craze, I don't know, within the last year or so. It's a Sleepy Girl mocktail. You can see that it kind of combines some of these to give you all of those benefits of magnesium and tart cherry juice, and then you just kind of top it off with some sparkling water and some ice. So something that you can try and see if it works for you. Okay, so we talked about a lot, and hopefully there's something that you're like, yeah, I'll try that. See if my 3 a.m. Wake ups aren't every night, or at least 5 out of the 7 nights. And then establish that sleep routine, find how you feel at night after you eat certain foods. What is the best time to stop eating for you? What are the best foods to not eat before bed for you? And just, find that bio-individual sleep routine, combining everything between what you eat, how you move, and kind of how you wind down. That's the other piece about like working out before bed. And sorry, I didn't like call this out with regards to the over exercising specifically, but if you have high intensity workouts right before bed, that may also keep you at an elevated cortisol level, impacting your sleep. So that's where you may find like if I have a high intensity workout anytime after 12 p.m. noon, like I just don't sleep well. But other people can do like a 9 p.m. workout and just like go home and crash and sleep through the night. So if you're doing those high intensity workouts, this might be a great time to just stretch or do a yoga class and see if that changes anything with your sleep routine. Okay, sorry, I covered a lot of tangents, as I like to do every day, but hopefully this is a lot of great new information that you didn't know so that you're kind of empowered to start making some decisions for yourself and play around to see what works well for you and, maybe what doesn't work so you can eliminate them and kind of move forward with those that do. We have one day left together. Somehow this week has just flown by, but I'm going to talk about just kind of everything else that didn't fit into the 4 buckets of nutrition, movement, sleep, and stress. So we'll talk about mental health, pelvic floor. We'll talk about some self-care activities and what you can do. And then if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, either reach out in that Facebook group or reach out via email, and we'll work to get those addressed tomorrow. I also kind of end each session with letting you know what's coming up with this empowerment series. I have tried to give you all of the foundational aspects of what to eat, how to move, things like that, so you can see what works best for you, but not in a prescriptive manner for any one thing specific to the weight gain or weight distribution or like redistribution that you may feel in perimenopause. And so I will be a little bit more prescriptive next Monday, May 5th at 6 p.m. as to what we can do to minimize the bloating and some of that weight gain or redistribution that happens. We're going to dive into thyroid truths with a local nurse practitioner, Yewande Benir, and then we're going to talk to a local mental health specialist about just being that sandwich generation and all the stress that comes with it, as well as just all of the other stressors that are amplified during this time of our life. And then we'll have a pelvic floor therapist, Lena Bird, come on June 2nd to talk about what is happening with our pelvis and all the musculature around there as estrogen and progesterone drops, how it's affecting our periods, how potentially it's affecting our pelvic floor to where we now have like bladder or uterine prolapse, and how we can enjoy sex again or at least make it more pleasurable. All these things that maybe you don't hear too much about, but trying to bring in local resources for you. There is a special code, so if you want to join us, please do take advantage of the discount for one, multiple, or all 4 sessions. You can kind of come to what fits your schedule and fits your interests. I also put out yesterday our weekly class schedule, so please do join us for a class if it is something that you would like to kind of plug into a more structured workout routine. Please feel free to try your first class on us with the code RELAX. That is a QR code as well as the website address to our website so that you can see and register for classes. And then last but not least, if you want to work more one-on-one with me, I have 3 spots available ultimately to kind of pinpoint where you're at in your journey and how we can help you kind of feel better and also just kind of get back to yourself, especially as things may feel out of control, trying to arm you with everything that we can. Again, at that bio-individual level, understanding that your needs are very unique from your sisters, your cousins, your best friends, whatever, whatever it may be, as you've probably seen already. So all of that is an investment of $500, and I know that that is a large amount of money, so nothing to scoff at, but I try to give you a lot into that. So there's over $1,200 that kind of goes into that. But yes, I would love to work with you if that is where you are in your journey. The last piece is, as I leave you today, try something new. Maybe, go buy those nice pajamas that make you feel comfortable and kind of start your sleep routine now. Speak kindly to yourself, not only with kindness, but also with compassion for all that you're going through. Prioritize restfulness throughout the day, and then the sleep so that you can sleep soundly at night. Move daily, especially outside if you can. Lean into the people that are your community and remember why all of this is important to you. With that, I'll go ahead, open it up for maybe a question if you have one, or understanding that this is your lunch hour, you might have to get back. Just say thank you again for joining me today. and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.